When I was in my 20s, I was a bit of an asshole, a self-proclaimed player. I had a chip on my shoulder, like most guys my age do, and I was only interested in having fun. I was living in a run-down, dirty two-bedroom apartment with a bunch of losers, mostly potheads, but a few drug addicts. That year, I met a girl at a night market in the Pico Union area of LA. Her name was Angela. She was in her late 20s and lived in a nice apartment in Koreatown. She told me she grew up in West Hills in the Valley, went to USC, and got her CPA. She was now working in a downtown high-rise for a company that did auditing for other companies, or something like that. Angela was a nice girl, but sorta introverted. She was also on the heavy side, so I wasn't really attracted to her. But the girl made money, and I was at my lowest point in life at that time. So long story short, we developed a sort of relationship, and I moved into her apartment. I was basically just a leech, spending most of my time sitting on her couch smoking weed and watching old Italian horror films. One day, I was sitting on a couch as usual, and there was a knock at the door. The UPS driver made me sign for an envelope from Angela's job. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened up the envelope. It was a bonus check for $5,000. Jackpot. I immediately called my friend and hooked up an ounce. I also got myself a fresh outfit and shoes, and I hit the bars early that Friday. By 1 a.m., I was drunk and completely out of money. I had to walk home because I was way too drunk to drive, and I couldn't afford an Uber. It was an average LA Friday night as I walked home. Sirens blared in the distance. Police cars raced down the empty streets with lights and sirens. Gunfire crackled in the night air, and helicopters flew overhead. I had to walk through a really dangerous area called MacArthur Park to get home. If you haven't heard about MacArthur Park, look into it. The number of violent crimes and murders that happen in this small area is crazy. As I walked down the dirty streets, the smell of stale urine on the sidewalk burning my nostrils, I saw a small black puppy whimpering in the dark. The puppy looked lost, lonely, and vulnerable. And in a strange way, it kind of reminded me of myself. I stopped, gave the puppy a pet, and moved on. I continued to walk, and the puppy followed. But every time I turned, it seemed to get a little bigger. And I was so messed up. I thought it was my vision or my mind playing tricks on me. I stopped and completely turned around to shoo away the puppy. But what I saw staring back at me was not a puppy, but a massive, snarling, drooling black dog, eyes glowing red like fire. My flight instincts immediately kicked in, and I ran the fastest I've ever run in my life, the dog in pursuit, growling and snapping as it gained on me. In my adrenaline-fueled terror, I ran into an alley, not even aware of how much deeper into danger I had stepped. This was MS territory, and I instantly regretted my mistake when I was met at the end of the alley by a group of gang members, one wielding a rusty machete. "You in the wrong hood, homie," one of the gang members calmly said. I had apparently walked into a gang initiation, and I was going to be part of it now. They surrounded me, and the scrawny machete-wielding kid began to approach me, scraping the machete on the floor as the rest of them laughed. Just then, the dog, now the size of a small horse, jumped from out of the darkness and proceeded to rip them apart. Limbs flew, and entrails spilled on the dirty alley floor. I froze. My legs wouldn't move. I stood there, having no choice but to watch the savagery. No one got away. The dog then turned to me and walked over slowly. It licked me across the face with its blood-dripping tongue. It was at that moment that I realized the errors of my life, how I'd been living and treating other people, and how I had taken advantage of Angela's kindness and love. I made it home that night, but I was met by police officers at the door. Angela crying in the doorway. This was the last straw. She would not put up with me anymore. I went to jail that night and spent a little time in county. I never saw Angela again, but I later heard she had married, had 2 kids, and was living in Woodland Hills. As for the devil dog, I can't tell you for sure if I imagined that or not. What I can tell you is, that dog saved and changed my life forever. If it wasn't for what happened that night, I'd probably still be in the same apartment with the same losers.